The first day of your disappearance is rarely as simple as silence. At first, she may not react dramatically. She may assume you are busy, distracted, occupied by work, or simply taking time for yourself. But beneath that calm surface, something subtle begins to change. The rhythm she had unconsciously formed around your presence is suddenly interrupted. If she was accustomed to seeing your message, hearing from you, noticing your attention, or knowing that you were somewhere within reach, the sudden absence creates an empty space in her mind. Human beings often fail to understand the value of something while it is consistently available. Presence can become ordinary. Attention can become expected. But the moment that familiar pattern disappears, the mind notices what it had previously ignored. This is where curiosity begins. She may check her phone more than usual, wondering whether you will reach out. She may revisit your last conversation and quietly search for clues. Did she say something wrong? Did you seem distant? Was there a moment she misunderstood? Or is your silence intentional? The more unexpected your disappearance is, the more questions can begin forming. And questions are powerful because the mind dislikes unfinished stories. When there is no clear explanation, imagination often rushes in to fill the empty space. Yet the important thing is not to confuse silence with manipulation. True power does not come from disappearing merely to make another person anxious. That kind of strategy eventually reveals insecurity. The deeper lesson is that you should never become so constantly available that your entire value depends upon immediate access. A person who has a full life, clear priorities, and emotional self-control does not need to announce every movement or chase every response. Sometimes you are simply unavailable because your attention belongs to your own purpose. On that first day, she may experience the beginning of uncertainty because certainty has been interrupted. Yesterday, she knew you were there. Today, she does not know what to expect. This small shift can make your presence more visible through its absence. She may not miss you completely yet, and she may not immediately admit that she is thinking about you. But the mind has registered the change. A pattern has been broken, and once someone begins noticing the silence, they also begin noticing the space you occupied. Your disappearance becomes a contrast against your former presence. Every unanswered expectation can create another moment of curiosity. The first day is not about obsession or panic. It is about awareness. It is the moment when your absence stops being invisible and quietly becomes a question in her mind. By the second day, curiosity can begin turning into focused attention. The silence that seemed unusual at first may now feel deliberate, even if she does not know whether it actually is. When someone has been a familiar part of your routine, their sudden absence creates a gap, and the mind naturally starts returning to that gap in search of an explanation. She may find herself thinking about you at unexpected moments, not because she has suddenly become obsessed, but because the pattern has changed and her mind is trying to understand why. Your name, your last message, a place you visited together, or even a small memory may trigger another thought about your disappearance. This is where the mind can become its own investigator. She may replay your recent conversations, looking at them differently than she did when they happened. A simple sentence can suddenly appear important. A moment of distance may now seem like a warning. She may wonder whether you were disappointed, whether your feelings changed, or whether you simply decided that your attention was better spent elsewhere. The unanswered questions can become more powerful than a clear explanation because certainty allows the mind to close a chapter, while uncertainty often keeps it open. Her ego may also begin to notice the change. If she was used to receiving your attention, the absence of that attention can feel like a quiet challenge to what she believed about your connection. She may ask herself why you have not contacted her. She may expect that you will eventually return, especially if you have always been the one to reach out first. But as time continues and you remain silent, expectation slowly meets reality. The familiar dynamic is no longer working in the same way, and this can make her pay closer attention to your behavior. At the same time, she may try to appear completely unaffected. Outward behavior does not always reveal inward thoughts. She may continue posting, talking, laughing, and living her normal life while privately wondering about the change. This does not mean she is secretly overwhelmed by emotion. It simply means that people often protect their pride when they do not understand where they stand. The less certain she feels about your intentions, the more carefully she may observe the situation. But the real lesson is not that disappearing guarantees a particular reaction. Every person and every relationship is different. What matters is the psychological principle of interrupted expectation. When you stop behaving in a predictable way, people notice. Constant availability can become background noise, while a meaningful change can bring awareness back to the surface. By the second day, your silence may no longer feel like a random delay. It can become a question without an answer, and the mind often gives more attention to what it cannot easily explain. Your absence now occupies a small space in her thoughts, not because silence has magical power, but because uncertainty has made your presence impossible to take for granted. By the third day, your absence may begin to feel more real than it did before. The first day brought confusion, and the second day created questions, but now the silence has lasted long enough to become noticeable. She may no longer think, "He is probably just busy," with the same certainty. Instead, another possibility can quietly enter her mind. Perhaps something has changed. Perhaps your attention is no longer guaranteed. This is the point where the mind starts comparing what exists now with what existed before. Your previous messages, calls, conversations, and small signs of interest can suddenly stand out because they are no longer part of the present. This contrast can have a strong psychological effect. When something is consistently available, the mind often stops paying close attention to it. It becomes part of the normal environment. But when that familiar presence disappears, the absence creates a contrast, and contrast attracts attention. She may notice certain times of the day when you would normally speak to her. She may look at her phone and briefly expect to see your name. She may encounter something that reminds her of a conversation you once had. These moments do not automatically mean she is deeply in love or unable to stop thinking about you. They simply show how routines and emotional associations can become visible when they are interrupted. By this stage, memories may begin returning with greater clarity. The mind can become selective during periods of distance. It may revisit the strongest moments rather than every ordinary detail. She may remember something you said that made her laugh, a moment when you understood her, or a time when your presence made her feel noticed. At the same time, she may remember disagreements and wonder whether they played a role in your disappearance. The unanswered silence gives the mind room to interpret, reconsider, and sometimes exaggerate the meaning of past events. Her reaction may also depend on the balance of power that existed between you. If she always believed you would remain available, your absence may challenge that assumption. If you were constantly pursuing, explaining, or seeking reassurance, your silence can feel unfamiliar because the old pattern has been broken. She may begin asking herself whether she misunderstood your importance or underestimated your ability to walk away. This is where attention can shift. Instead of you constantly wondering what she thinks, she may now be wondering what you are thinking. Still, the strongest position is not to disappear as a game. Real self-control means being able to step back without needing to control someone else's emotions. You should not vanish to punish, create fear, or force a reaction. Distance has value when it protects your peace, restores perspective, or allows both people to see the relationship more clearly. If she genuinely valued your presence, the third day may make that realization stronger. If she did not, the silence can reveal that truth as well. Either way, your absence is beginning to provide information that constant pursuit could never give. The silence has now separated enough distance for reality to speak, and what she feels may become clearer precisely because you stop trying to force an answer. By the fourth day, the silence may begin to touch a deeper part of her mind because uncertainty has now lasted longer than she expected. What began as a simple change in routine can become something she actively notices. She may have expected you to return, send a message, explain yourself, or resume the familiar pattern between you. But when none of that happens, her thoughts can move beyond curiosity. Now she may begin confronting the possibility that your absence is not temporary. That possibility can create a quiet conflict between emotion and ego. One part of her may wonder why you have not reached out. Another part may tell her that she should not care. She may feel curious about what you are doing while also resisting the idea of showing that curiosity. Pride often becomes strongest when a person feels uncertain about where they stand. She may want to check on you but stop herself. She may consider sending a message and then decide against it. The internal struggle is not always about love. Sometimes it is simply about the loss of certainty. She was used to understanding the dynamic, and now the rules appear to have changed. Your silence may also cause her to reinterpret your previous behavior. Things that once seemed ordinary can suddenly appear meaningful. Perhaps she remembers moments when you were always available, always initiating contact, or always trying to keep the connection alive. With distance, she may begin to recognize how much effort you were investing. People often notice the weight someone carried only after that person puts it down. When you stop filling every silence, starting every conversation, and repairing every moment of distance, the other person finally has space to see what was previously happening without conscious attention. This can challenge her sense of control. If she believed she understood how to influence your emotions, your sudden independence may feel unfamiliar. She may ask herself whether you have changed your mind, found new priorities, or simply decided to move forward. The lack of information can make imagination more active, but imagination is not the same as reality. That is why silence should never be used to deliberately manipulate another person. Trying to make someone jealous, anxious, or emotionally dependent usually creates unhealthy patterns. The strongest form of distance comes from genuinely focusing on your own life rather than secretly waiting for a reaction. By the fourth day, the emotional picture may become clearer. She may feel irritation because your absence disrupted her expectations. She may feel concern because she does not understand what happened. She may feel curiosity because unanswered questions remain, or she may feel nothing particularly intense, which is also valuable information. Distance has a way of revealing truth because it removes the constant noise of interaction. When you are no longer constantly present, both people are forced to confront what actually exists without the comfort of routine. The deeper lesson is that you should never measure your worth by whether someone reacts to your absence. Your value does not increase because another person misses you, and it does not disappear because they move on. But when you stop chasing validation, you gain something more important than control over her mind. Control over your own attention. By the fourth day, the silence may be teaching her about your absence, but it should also be teaching you whether you are capable of walking away without losing yourself. By the fifth day, the silence can begin creating space for reflection. The initial confusion may no longer be the strongest emotion. She has had time to notice your absence, question the change, and experience the interruption of a familiar pattern. Now the mind may begin moving backward, revisiting memories that did not seem especially important while you were still constantly present. This is one of the strange effects of distance. When a person is no longer directly in front of us, the mind sometimes brings them back through memory. She may remember the way you spoke, the advice you gave, the moments when you made her laugh, or the times when you understood something about her that others did not. Your physical absence can make certain emotional moments feel more visible. The mind does not always remember people in a balanced way. During periods of distance, it may become selective. She may forget some ordinary conversations and return instead to the moments that carried emotion. A simple compliment you gave her months ago may suddenly return to her mind. A conversation that seemed unimportant at the time may now feel different. She may remember the consistency of your attention, the effort you made, or the energy you brought into her life. This does not guarantee that she will suddenly realize she is in love with you. Human emotions are more complicated than that. But absence can create an opportunity to reevaluate someone after the routine of their presence has been removed. There may also be a deeper question forming beneath the memories. What did you actually mean to her? When someone is always available, there is little pressure to answer that question. The relationship simply continues. Messages are exchanged, conversations happen, and the familiar rhythm moves forward without requiring much reflection. But when that rhythm suddenly stops, she may be forced to notice whether your presence added something meaningful to her life. Did she feel understood around you? Did she enjoy speaking with you? Did your attention provide comfort, excitement, security, or emotional connection? Or was she simply accustomed to having you there? Distance can separate genuine attachment from simple habit. This is also the point where regret can sometimes appear. Not necessarily dramatic regret, but a quiet awareness that perhaps she did not appreciate certain things while they were available. She may remember times when you tried to communicate and she gave little in return. She may think about moments when you showed interest while she assumed you would always remain there. The mind can become uncomfortable when it recognizes that something valuable was treated as permanent. We often believe we have more time, more chances, and more control than we actually do. Your disappearance can challenge that belief. At the same time, memories can create another kind of conflict. She may miss certain aspects of you while still feeling uncertain about the relationship itself. She may remember the good while questioning whether you will return. She may want to know what changed but refuse to reach out because of pride. The longer the silence continues, the more she may realize that she cannot rely on the old pattern anymore. If you were always the one who initiated contact, your absence can force her to confront what happens when you stop carrying the connection alone. This is where a powerful shift can occur in the dynamic. She may begin seeing your past actions from a different perspective. The messages she once expected may now appear as effort. The time you gave may now seem more valuable because it is no longer being offered. The attention she once considered ordinary may reveal itself as something she had become accustomed to receiving. Again, this is not magic. Not everyone will react this way, and trying to force these feelings through manipulation is a mistake. But genuine distance can reveal the true weight of what was once present. The fifth day is often less about immediate emotion and more about recognition. The silence has lasted long enough for memory to become active and for habit to lose some of its certainty. She may begin comparing the life she experienced with you present to the life she is experiencing with you absent. In that comparison, certain truths can become impossible to ignore. Perhaps she realizes that she misses you. Perhaps she recognizes that she took your presence for granted. Perhaps she discovers that the connection was never as deep as either of you believed. Whatever the answer, distance has started doing what constant pursuit never could. It has created room for honesty. And in that quiet space, she may finally begin to understand not just why you disappeared, but what your presence truly meant before it was gone. By the sixth stage, the meaning of your disappearance may finally become clearer, not because silence has given you control over her mind, but because distance has removed the constant distractions that once hid the truth. During the first few days, confusion, curiosity, expectation, pride, and memory may have all competed for her attention. Now she has had enough time to experience the change without immediately receiving an explanation. The connection is no longer operating on its old routine. She cannot simply assume that you will return at the usual moment, send the usual message, or continue offering the same level of attention. Something fundamental has shifted, and with that shift comes a moment of recognition. She may begin asking herself a more honest question. What did his presence actually mean to me? This question is deeper than wondering why you did not text or when you will return. It asks her to examine the emotional role you played in her life. Perhaps you were a source of comfort. Perhaps you made her feel understood. Perhaps your conversations gave her excitement, reassurance, or a feeling of being desired. Or perhaps she simply enjoyed knowing that you were always available. These are not the same things. Genuine connection and the comfort of constant attention can sometimes look similar while the relationship is active. Distance can expose the difference. If the connection was meaningful, she may begin recognizing details she once overlooked. She may remember your patience during difficult moments, the way you listened, or the effort you made without demanding immediate rewards. She may realize that your consistency was not an automatic feature of her life, but a choice you were making every day. When someone stops giving what they once gave freely, the mind can finally see the value of that effort. Your absence may turn invisible habits into visible memories. The things she once considered ordinary may become reminders of something she can no longer easily access. But if she discovers that she does not miss you deeply, that truth matters as well. The purpose of stepping back should never be to manufacture feelings that do not exist. You cannot force genuine attachment by disappearing for a few days. You cannot build real love by creating anxiety, and you cannot make a healthy relationship stronger through endless psychological games. Silence may reveal interest, but it can also reveal indifference. Both answers contain information. A person who is strong does not run from uncomfortable information simply because it is not the answer they hope to receive. This is where your own mindset becomes more important than her reaction. Too many people disappear physically while remaining emotionally trapped. They stop sending messages but check their phone every 5 minutes. They say they are walking away but secretly count every hour until the other person responds. That is not real distance. That is waiting in disguise. True self-control means you can step back without making her reaction the center of your life. Your silence should not become another form of chasing. If every moment of your absence is spent imagining what she is thinking, then she still controls your attention even while you are nowhere to be seen. The final shift happens when you understand that disappearing is not the real source of power. The real power is becoming capable of being absent without feeling that your identity is collapsing. It is knowing that your value does not depend on being constantly chosen, constantly answered, or constantly needed. When you build a life with purpose, discipline, friendships, ambition, and inner stability, your availability naturally changes. You are not disappearing to create mystery. You are simply no longer willing to abandon your own life in order to remain endlessly accessible to someone else. From her perspective, this change may be striking. If she was accustomed to you always returning, your ability to remain focused on your own path can challenge everything she assumed about you. She may begin wondering whether she misjudged your strength, whether she took your effort for granted, or whether she failed to recognize your value while it was available. She may reach out, she may not. She may feel regret, curiosity, relief, or nothing at all. You cannot control which reaction will happen, and trying to predict every thought in her mind will only return you to the same position of emotional dependence you were trying to escape. What matters is what the silence reveals. Sometimes it reveals that the connection was real and that your absence created a space where appreciation could finally emerge. Sometimes it reveals that you were doing most of the emotional work and that the relationship only survived because you kept pushing it forward. Sometimes it reveals that both people were attached more to routine than to each other. The truth may be painful, but it is still more valuable than an illusion maintained by constant effort. By this final stage, the greatest lesson is no longer about what happens in her mind. It is about what happens in yours. The moment you stop using your absence as a test and start using distance as a chance to see reality clearly, you become stronger. You no longer need to disappear to make someone chase you. You no longer need silence to create fear or uncertainty. You understand that the right person does not need to be manipulated into recognizing your worth, while the wrong person cannot be convinced of it through endless effort. If she truly values the connection, distance may help her recognize what your presence meant. If she does not, your absence may save you from wasting more time trying to prove yourself. Either outcome gives you something important: clarity. and clarity is far more powerful than temporary attention. The strongest person is not the one who disappears and successfully controls another person's emotions. The strongest person is the one who can walk away, face the truth, protect their peace, and continue building a meaningful life without needing anyone's reaction to confirm their value.